Now we're going to bring on Barbara and Melanie, who are the two amazing ladies who created this partnership, along with a stellar team behind them, of course. So Barbara and Melanie, welcome to our brand storytelling live stream. So we'd like to kick this off. The first question that I had was, Melanie, in terms of a lot of these programs that are not traditional advertising, not traditional digital or events, sometimes it takes a minute to sell it in to the organization that, hey, we're going to do something a little integrated, a little different. Was that an easy process, or did it take a minute over there with Kohler?
It took a half a minute, let's call it that. Our product, because we're working with Kohler Generators, which is a little bit more complicated than selling a Kohler sink or faucet, we're used to the fact that it takes a little bit more of a story to get people to really understand our product, the need for the product, and get comfortable with it. We've always known that our product protects people during disasters, and who do people turn to trust when they're facing a disaster? They turn to the Weather Channel. So understanding that we needed to tell a story, we needed to put people in a comfortable place of trust. We also needed to partner with somebody that they trust in that right forum. It actually wasn't a heavy lift to sell that in at Kohler.
And Barbara, from your perspective, kind of the same question. When you get a call like this, is it more of, I don't know, we're gonna have to figure something out, get a team together, not quite sure? Or are you like, oh my God, this is a home run, I've got the perfect solution?
Well, first of all, we have a salesperson, so I'm hoping it was us, pursuing Melanie. But no, look, we obviously take any kind of integration like this when we marry our trusted brand with another brand. We definitely want to make sure it's the right fit. The last thing we want to do is have our audience kind of have that internal groaning of like, are you serving me up a commercial in a fake way? So this was definitely not that. We knew right away it was a partner that made sense, especially as we head into hurricane season, where our viewers are looking for safety and preparedness information.
Got it, understood. Well, in order for everyone to get a good context around this program, so we can ask more decisive questions and really dive into the creative and the execution, I think we should all take a look. So Drew, why don't we roll tape and give everyone the sneak peek?
Well, now more than ever, people are concerned about the impact that frequent storms and extended power outages have on their lives. Now, while portable generators may keep a refrigerator and a few small appliances running, there are safety issues if they are not operated properly. But now there's a better way to power your home after a power outage. Jim Cantore met with Kohler home improvement expert Ed Delgrand to see the future of home generators.
We had a record number of billion-dollar weather disasters last year, and having an emergency preparedness kit for a few days sometimes just doesn't cut it. Let's talk about adding a generator to your arsenal. Ed, there are generators and there are generators.
Yes, there are.
What's the benefit of having a generator?
Well, the big benefit, let's face it, we now live in a plugged-in society. Just about everything we use requires electricity. So your best defense is having a backup generator system.
So what are the differences?
Well, the big difference is there's a portable and a standby. The portable generators are great for things like camping and tailgating, and in a pinch, they'll run a few appliances in your house. Now, remember, with a portable one, you do have to refuel them. They run on gasoline. And you also have to make sure you run it outside away from the house. So you do have to do some constant care on it throughout the event. With a standby generator, you don't have any of those concerns. These things are permanently installed to the home's electrical system. They come on automatically, and they could power up the entire house, not just a few circuits.
And being able to stay in your home and make repairs to your home, isn't that almost like having the comforts of home, even though you have to put up with that?
Absolutely. And a standby generator is like your own personal power plant in your backyard. Now, natural gas is great. It'll hook right up to your gas lines. If you don't have natural gas, you could use propane gas. And if you use propane gas, I recommend at least a 500-gallon tank.
All right, so you sold me on a standby, something like this. what's the first thing I need to do?
First thing you do, contact the local dealer. They're all over the country. They'll come down, do what's called a site visit. At the site visit, they'll locate it, see all the local codes, install it to the local codes, and they'll even service it for you. This is not a do-it-yourself project.
You lose power, you've got power now to power your house.
Absolutely.
That's a win, brother. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Awesome. That was great. So interesting. So, we talked about this a little bit before, and seeing the video in the context of the lead-in is everything. And Barbara, we were talking about how this particular content is running in programming time. And for sure, from an organic standpoint, when you watch it, especially if you're watching the Weather Channel, it just flows with every other piece. Is that how all of your programs like this are designed, where it just feels so natural?
Well, sure. That's what we aim for. And I think this came off really well. The piece itself is just chock full of information, and we are a news network. So while it seems sometimes like, hey, they're pointing out all the features and how it works, all of that information is something our audience really leans into, because they're, paying close attention to the Weather Channel, looking for this type of information. And I really do think it's a great fit, and they learn something from the segment.
And Melanie, I'm curious, from your perspective for this program, and obviously your Marcom efforts in general, when you look at this type of integration and your other efforts, is your goal, based on the awareness and market share, to let people know, first and foremost, we make generators. We don't just make faucets. Or are you already going past that and you're like, yes, we make generators, but we make some of the best generators, and here's why. What is kind of the consumer journey from a communication and messaging standpoint?
Yeah, I think that we definitely are looking beyond just, hey, we make generators. We want to let people know that we make solutions. So, one of the first things they need to understand is, what are they trying to solve? And so we know that we have to get past the point of people thinking that a power outage is just something where you light a few candles, play some cards for an hour, and then everything's fine. Those happen, but there are more serious power outages. So we really need to get them to that journey of understanding the need for a solution, and then understand that, Kohler makes the best solution. So that's part of our journey. And we try to do that in a more comfortable way. Rather than selling fear, we're trying to sell empowerment. So that's something that really, we need it to come across, and we feel like it did in this partnership with the Weather Channel.
And by the way,
I was just going to riff off that. I thought it was great that Jim talked about how we've all come to rely on being connected. And so, it's almost like, you think about it, you play a game of cards that you light the candles, but you're instantly jonesing for your phone. So I think that's really important to emphasize. And he did it in a way that was very, fluid. And I just also liked the relationship between Jim and the spokesperson. I thought they seemed similar in nature, so it was quite a cool dialogue.
Melanie, I ask all our brands this question because some are obvious. We all heard how the travel industry was, of course, hurt by the pandemic. And, if you just happen to own a bicycle shop, you were in luck and you're selling out. Since so many people seem so concerned about their homes, because their homes now became their offices and their workplace, how did Kohler do overall during I'm assuming very well, but was curious.
Yeah, I think the pandemic, with people locked down in their homes and not really having anywhere else to turn, they were working from home, they were schooling from home, and if they had a power outage, they felt very vulnerable. Before the pandemic, if the power went out in your house, you'd just go somewhere else, right? You could go to a restaurant and get food. You could go to a hotel where it was either cool or hot, depending on what the weather situation is. But you had a lot of options, and people didn't have those options. So when the power went out, all of a sudden their connection with the outside world also went out with it. And because of that, it did create a lot of demand for generators. People were seeking solutions, and we definitely were able to tap into that and really provide solutions for a lot of people so they feel a bit more independent.
Amazing. Barbara, when we've run these live streams before, the question I get most, usually after the live stream, people don't think of it during, is everyone looks at the results and they look at the creative and they're like, wow, this would be something great for us to do, but they always wonder about, the cost. Whenever I do panels on brand funded films, people go, how much was that movie? And I'm like, well, there's 300 people in the audience. I really can't tell you what Samsung spent, but we will put you on the spot and ask from a value perspective, if you compare, let's just say, buying 2 minutes of commercials, ROS standard rates versus a 2-minute piece like this, is this a better value?
Well, certainly, you're afforded the leverage of our two brands working together that I think makes it much more powerful than a commercial. I mean, a commercial, of course, is telling the brand's message, and that does all the heavy lifting day in, day out. But something like this kind of goes beyond that. As we mentioned, the trusted nature of our brand working in concert with Kohler, I think brings something to the table that's, really amazing. But I will say that at the Weather Channel, we have live studios. We're producing live programming every single day. We just have incredible facilities. So for us to do integrations, it doesn't cost quite as much as some of the other places I've had the good fortune of selling media, bigger networks that have to produce everything, in advance, and they don't have the live studio setting. So we do make it a reasonable investment. And then we also offer all of the assets that we've produced and created together to the client so they can use it in whichever way they want to use it on their platforms or for whatever other purposes they have. So a little bit goes a long way.
And I'm curious, you're in a unique position in that you don't own your corresponding digital footprint that IBM had purchased, but do you have any vehicle where you get any consumer feedback from a campaign like this, where consumers, and I'll ask Melanie the same question for her own channels, do you get any feedback from consumers who are just like, wow, that was great, I found that informative, or
Yeah, we do push it out on social media, and that's where we can get those clicks and thumbs and whatever to show the engagement. And we do work with the IBM people on those same platforms. So there is some crossover permitted because we do share a brand.
Got it. And Melanie, same question. Did you receive any consumer feedback from this campaign through your socials and digital channels?
Yes, we did, and it was very positive. So we were very pleased with it. It definitely seemed to resonate with people, and I think that the dialogue and the relationship between Jim Cantore and our spokesperson Ed Del Grande were definitely helped people engage with the message, and it definitely resonated.
Great. And Melanie, what are the kinds of, I'm just curious, if you look at your overall marketing mix and other integration platforms that you guys have engaged with, obviously from a lot of your core products in the kitchen and bathroom, you would think are perfect matches for the home design shows. But has brand integration like this, has this been a staple over the years? Is this something kind of new for you guys? Where does it fit?
So this is something that we've been involved in, and I guess over the years, we've actually been making generators for over 100 years, but bringing them really into the consumer forefront has been a little bit more of a challenge for us, which we've basically over maybe the last 2 decades, we've really tried to make it more of a consumer product. We've been very heavily invested in backing up hospitals and data centers and airports. But bringing it and tying it in with our consumer brand has been something that's probably, again, in the last, maybe 15 years or so. And it's been something where we do find people are interested when we integrate with our kitchen and bath products because they know and trust Kohler for faucets and toilets and sinks, but they aren't as aware that we make backup power and have been making it for a very long time. So that's something that's been quite natural for us.
So we have a question from the audience, and the question is, and I'll kind of rephrase it, is knowing the Weather Channel audience, did you first look at the Weather Channel audience and go, okay, based on the target audience, this is the creative we should come up with? Or did you start to think about the creative and said, God, the Weather Channel would be like, how did it go?
We really thought about the audience first from our perspective and let that drive the creative rather than the other way around.
Got it. Perfect. And Melanie, what are some of the other types of integrations that you've done? Have you found successful? Like what has worked for you or what has not worked for you?
So one of the things that's really worked well for us is to not just focus on selling product, but to really take that step a little bit further and really focus on how families can keep their family and their home safe during disasters. And power outages are definitely part of that disaster. A lot of times they compound the disaster or even become the disaster themselves, as we saw in a few situations just during this past year. So really speaking to that by doing a little bit more public service outreach has been very effective for us. We've worked with some of the leaders of the resilience movement, like the Federal Alliance for Safe Homes. We've worked with General Russell Honore and really talking about how people can protect themselves and really making the generator might be a smaller part of that message, but it becomes, very apparent by just, helping people become more resilient in their own homes and situations.
And Barbara, we're wondering, you look at the integration, especially with the lead-in, and you're like, God, that was so natural and so organic, which is what everyone always goes for. So you would think, wow, this really should become our model. So is this type of integration, is it, well, we do them once in a while, we're 90% spots and dots, but do we do these small, like, where will this be in the mixer? Now we're going, wow, we should really make this product, make it more of a product.
Well, I mean, of course, we have to be careful because we are a news organization, the most trusted news brand in America, according to the Harris Poll. That was my sales pitch. But beyond, something like this, again, a very endemic product, the messages really align for us. We also like to, co-create content with marketers that kind of takes us outside of the news sort of guardrails and into more of that lifestyle piece. So we've worked with several different automotive brands that are looking to, for example, Jeep wanted to portray, people getting into the out there. And that's something that the Weather Channel does, again, quite naturally. When you're looking at the weather, you're trying to plan your adventure. And so we co-created content using our talent with Jeep and showed, people going to discover places in America. So we try to, not only do something quite as spot on as this and in that news studio environment, but kind of tie in the interests of our on-camera meteorologists or a tone that really matches kind of what you check the Weather Channel for to enable you to, lead your life and plan your next outing. And that's how we get to those lifestyle segments.
And can we assume, I can't believe I didn't ask this before, that it was the Weather Group's team that actually produced and directed the piece?
Yes, that definitely was done by the Weather with our studio producers. But oftentimes we'll, hire outside companies if we're doing shoots and we're out in the field trying to, again, craft a story that aligns with the marketer's sort of lifestyle and, psychographic, objectives.
Got it.
Yeah, and if I can
Yes.
I
Yeah.
think one of the things that also really kept it, gave it a little bit more of that organic, natural feel was the choice to not do this in a studio. We actually went out to the home of Ed Del Grande, who's our home improvement expert, and that wasn't a brand new generator. That was the generator that actually backs up his house, and it's been sitting there since I think he installed it in 2012, so almost 10 years. And it's really been put into action during disasters, and just walking around Ed's house, is kind of that format that I think made it feel a little bit more natural and a little bit more organic.
Interesting. So Barbara, I'm just curious, and I think we mentioned on our pre-call that my agency focuses on long-form branded funded films. So is your model limited to this 2-minute pod, or are you open to 5, 10, 50, like what is kind of your threshold for these type of integrations?
So generally they're 2 to 4 minutes, and then we air them multiple times, introduced like you saw here, or in different ways across the network in different day parts. This piece, I believe, aired 6 or 8 times on the network. So, we had, again, a lot of exposure for it. But as of yet, we've not done co-branded like hour-long productions, but we certainly would love to talk about that with a marketer who has a story that's super relevant for our network.
Great. And how do you both address, I mean, you go to, any of these panels and conferences, and there's always someone who stands up and are like, broadcast TV, cable TV, dying medium. It's over. It's all about the streaming wars. The only place to be is on Hulu and HBO Max and Netflix. And yet, here you are on television. How do you, each of you, kind of address that kind of mentality and point of view?
Well, I think first of all, we're all fortunate in this industry that people watch a lot of television or a lot of video. So they don't just, watch their Netflix show and that's it. They're always, looking for news and live sports and events and, their favorite shows on their favorite channels. So I wouldn't discount the existence of broadcast or network television or cable at this point.
Melanie?
Yeah. And I would concur. And I think, kind of like live sports, I think the Weather Channel stands out from a lot of other broadcast television. You might be watching, HBO, but all of a sudden you get an alert that there's a hurricane happening somewhere. And you're going to turn off HBO and flip over to the Weather Channel and see what's happening, and probably see one of their meteorologists standing in the, in the middle of the storm, reporting it as it's occurring. So I think that it really does make a good fit, even in this digital age where, people say that it's, yesterday's news. It definitely isn't. It's today's news. And I think the Weather Channel is this minute's news.
And was there, I'm just curious, was there ever a traditional media buy, just commercials between Kohler and the Weather Group? Or was this the first foray into a partnership?
We have previously done traditional buys on the Weather Channel. We did not do it in conjunction with this. This was, a separate initiative, but it's definitely something we've done before, and I'm sure we will do again.
Great. All right. I think we covered most of the big points here. Do either of you have any closing words of wisdom or point of view that we didn't touch on?
Well, from my perspective, thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Marcus, for really, again, bringing this partnership to light. And it's been really a pleasure working with you.
Melanie,
Yeah,
any
and
closing?
I definitely agree with Barbara. I mean, it's been a great experience. I think our teams really worked very well together. It was great meeting you, Marcus, and having a chance to chat with you. But overall, we've really appreciated the ability to bring it together and to also bring it to market at a very relevant time. I think we launched right at the very beginning of hurricane season,
Exactly.
and we're probably going to run it again as we approach maybe more peak weather conditions, where it's going to be, you know, it's always important to be talking to people when it's relevant to them, and I think we were able to achieve that. So we really appreciate it, and thank you for all of the attention and questions.
No, this was great. I was able to take the video and show it to my wife and say, now can I get a generator? So I thank you. Thank you both, since it absolutely does the trick 100%.
Well, thanks so much.
Excellent.
Thank you, Marcus, for hosting this conversation. And thanks, Melanie and Barbara, for bringing this story to us. Storm season is coming, so, you know,
I know.
consider a generator out there.
Absolutely.
Thanks all. Signing off.
All right. Thank
Thanks, everybody.